This is O-Talk, a podcast covering the Ontario Hockey League. From people within the game. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the O-Talk podcast, our first one of 2023. I'm your host, Jordan Jacklin, joined always alongside of Frankie Benvenuti and Josh Kim. How you boys doing this week after the OHL trade deadline is passed? Starting with you, Josh.
Good, man. I am getting such a high right now. It is all party vibes in Barrie right now. We're having a great time. Team's feeling good. Yeah, it's been good. We took a bit of a hiatus. Obviously, things got really hectic for all of us, but we are back in the airwaves. First episode of 2023. Very exciting. This one's going to be maybe a bit of a longer one because we have a lot of news to dive into, but I'm looking forward to it, man. Frankie, how are you doing?
I think we might be a little bit more excited than Jordan, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know. Why is that? I don't know. You just, the Steelheads, I mean.
We got two franchises trending in one direction and the other trending in quite the opposite direction.
But no, like it's been really good here in Ottawa. The new guys are fitting in pretty well. Pretty nice to get to know some new faces. Of course, tough when you send somebody elsewhere, but at least Ethan Quick has a good new home with Josh.
Yeah.
So
he hasn't followed me yet on Instagram, by the way.
Well,
I haven't talked to him yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And just on that note, we are back on a regular schedule. Are going to be doing one podcast a week, and comment below any guests you would like to see on the show.
We probably have some really good ones lined up, if I'm being honest. Like there are a lot of options out there. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time for content for junior hockey.
But we didn't want to bring on a guest for this one because there's just so much to dissect here as we head into the major trades really that happened at this OHL trade deadline. We're talking about our teams personally too and what happened. But let's start with Shane Wright, So Shane Wright.
Do you want to start with it, or do you want to make everybody wait until the end? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe we go.
That's the story there.
Maybe we go team by team first. I don't know. Like you guys can.
I would just start. Let's just start with Shane Wright here, and then we're going into Ottawa.
You have an order to go through, Jordan. So we'll follow suit.
So obviously, there was a report that Shane Wright was going to go to London. People thought it was done. Even Jeff Merrick was talking about it in Hockey Then in Canada. But surprise, the Windsor Spitfires, currently the second best team in the league, ends up acquiring him and a conditional 14th round pick in exchange for Gavin McCarthy in Ottawa's second, third, fourth, sixth. Just basically a ton of draft picks. That's what you're going to know. That's a trend with all of these.
Ethan Miedema is how you pronounce it. Yeah, that's the big piece.
Ethan Miedema. Yes, Ethan Miedema too is the big piece in that trade. What are your guys' general thoughts on this and basically everything that happened here around Shane Wright? I'll start with you, Frankie.
Well, I think for sure he was the big piece to fall, right? Like we saw a couple more trades come after that was done. I think all things considered, Kingston probably got a pretty good return. Like Miedema's got potential to be their kind of cornerstone, I think, when you get into it, when they're ready to compete again. It's like it took a lot to get them. So for Windsor, this obviously signals all in. And I think, there might have been some behind the scenes shenanigans with that London thing possibly to kind of make other teams go a little bit more serious mode, maybe. That's just
the GM even called it out. Like the London's GM, I actually listened to a radio hit, and he completely called out the whole report and said, "Oh, Oliver Bonk was never on the table." It was pretty hilarious actually to listen to.
You know what though? To watch that was actually interesting because I think we were all big fans of Bonk last year at the U17s.
I'm still a huge fan of him now. So
for sure. So to watch him, kind of I saw Instagram comments of him saying I'm not going anywhere. It was so very
funny. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't tell you the personality that Oliver Bonk has, that is just hilarious. How he just replies to his own Instagram comment and says, "I'm not going anywhere." There needs to be more of that.
And I will add too, good on London for protecting their young player that they believe in a lot. Obviously, obviously we all know that's a very good organization, and I like that they came out and they said, "Hey, hold on a second, don't put that out there because our guy's not going anywhere."
For me, I'm not as like on the same page as Frankie, I guess, with the trade. First of all, I am very frustrated that it took that long to get Shane Wright into a different market other than Kingston. I think they could have had something done way sooner. And I know they had to deliberate with a lot of different people and a lot of different parties were involved, but like, man, that just took so long. And it was just, we were talking about it like every day, all day, every day. And it just got annoying to that point. The one thing I will say is that I'm really glad like Oliver Blanc is staying in London. I don't really know how well he would have done like in a different market other than that, but like he's a great player. Obviously, London does not want to give up on that. I just think Kingston could have gotten more in return, personally. I don't know what the workings were behind the scenes. When I saw the trade, I was like, either I'm not sold on Ethan Miedema's game completely as like compared to you guys. Like I'm sold on his game, but maybe not as much as you two. I just think that Kingston could have done better. Like, and I'm glad he went to Windsor because like that was probably the team that I was like probably the most comfortable like team of him going to other than anyone else. But I think they could have done better in the return. Personally.
Yeah, it's interesting. Only 1 second round pick, and this is a general reminder that you can't trade a first round pick in the OHL. I know you probably maybe saw that Olin Zellweger trade in the WHL that included 4 firsts. You can't do that type of trade anymore in the OHL. But yeah, still to only get 1 second round pick among all of those draft picks is quite fascinating for Shane.
I do want to point out that Miedema in his time with Windsor was nearly a point per game this year. I know the first 4 games in Kingston haven't been great, but I mean, let's face it, that team in Kingston right now is very young. They're going to take some time to gel together, and I think Miedema, like, I don't know, I think to me is the kind of guy that we've already seen that can play a big role on a contending team, and that's as a 2005 player this year. So by the time Kingston's ready to compete as soon as next year, he'll be a good fit. And I think possibly too, Josh, he's probably one of the best players they could have gotten in return.
Oh, he definitely is like one of the top like prospects, I guess you could say that he could have gotten in return. I just think there were some bigger names out there. Whether that means London or a team like Barrie or even Ottawa wasn't willing to part is a different question. But in the end, like the return is the return. I just think it could have been better.
Alrighty, and let's just head into Ottawa here and tee us up, Frankie, when it comes to Pavel Mintyukov and Logan Morrison.
I'm just gonna like excuse myself. I hate this. Like I genuinely hate this.
Well, you know what, Josh? It's funny that you mentioned that Ottawa probably wasn't willing to give up, because what did they give up to get Logan Morrison and Pavel Mintyukov? Nothing but draft picks. It's kind of a trend that we've seen with James Boyd throughout his time in Ottawa too. Like, even if you look back to the Mikey DiPietro trade that he made, it was Matt Maggio who went the other way, who at the time was not much of anything. I don't think anyone really, I don't think anybody really expected this progression in Matt Maggio. Yeah. The other player going that way was Igor Afanasyev, who at the time had never reported to Ottawa, and there was no expectation that he would ever leave Russia to come play in the OHL. So, they gave up basically 2 players that they didn't think would amount to much. Obviously, that ended up not being true. But every other trade since then, it's been nothing but draft picks. So when I talked to James Boyd this week, he said the Logan Morrison trade eventually turned into nothing but draft picks, and they were very happy with that, and they pulled the trigger on the 6 picks there. And then when Mintyukov became available, it was the same deal. Saginaw wanted draft picks that I think we can all assume are going to be used to potentially flip for more players next year if they host the Memorial Cup. So again, 9 more draft picks out, and they kept all of their young players, bar Ethan Quick, who was moved to Barrie to kind of give them a bit more of an opportunity this year or next year.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not my fingers aren't on the pulse like Frankie is in Ottawa, but like, I mean, it is a phenomenal time to be a 67s fan. It's a phenomenal time to be.
I do have one question for you though, Frankie. Yes. When was the last time you would say Ottawa has had a great defenseman like Mintyukov on their team?
I would say
Caden Kelly, obviously. It was this year, so
he's a forward, Josh.
Oh god.
The last time the 67s have had a real threatening offensive defenseman would be Noel Hoffenmeyer the year he scored 100 points, but that was as an overager.
Tearing up the AHL, by the way.
That's a great pick. Yeah, AHL All-Star, too. That's huge.
I don't know. As a guy that's not an overager, you might be going back to Brian Campbell.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. But that's how good Pavel Mintyukov is. I don't
know. No, it's a great time to be a 67s fan. And like, for as much as we give credit to Windsor for going all in, I mean, Ottawa definitely should have gone all in, and they did. So like, respect to them. Obviously that those 2 players are going to work wonders in that market like that, and obviously we've seen the progress already. So
We
kudos
have
to them.
seen some issues so far with Logan Morrison tweaked lower body. He's day to day. We're not sure whether he will play this weekend or not.
What about Thursday?
We don't know.
A reminder, like that's a
Yes.
top-notch game.
Yeah.
Ottawa's
Now-
in Barrie for the second time in like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
That is going to be a wild one.
The thing with Ottawa too is, getting Jack Beck back right now is almost like a trade deadline acquisition. He'd only played 10 games before. He's slotted right in, playing with Logan Morrison and Cooper Foster. They've been fantastic. Beck has looked really good. They're still they're struck with the injury bug right now though. Like, I know you guys saw it. The Vinny Rohr hit was it was bad.
Awful.
Happily though, that the kid is fine, no side effects. I spoke to him at the rink yesterday or the day before. He seems okay. So that's fantastic news for Vinny Rohr. Derek Smythe is still out. Thomas Sermon has to play forward for now. Tyler Boucher still hasn't come back. And with Logan Morrison out, it's been tough, which is why it was so impressive that they beat Sarnia 2-0 the other day without a lot of their best players, including Henry Muse, who was suspended for a game.
Yeah, and obviously regarding Vinny Rohr, that's great news to hear. That was a scary incident. But things are generally trending up here in Ottawa, which is pretty crazy because they're the best team in the league. It's hard to really go up from there, but they're getting all of these players for the playoffs. They want to go on the run, not just for an OHL championship, but
the playoffs are going to be an interesting animal because we got some really good teams and we got some really bad ones. So
hey, and there's another interesting element to it here in Ottawa too, because we found out yesterday they are going to be booted out of their own rink for the first round with the Briar here. They will have to go over to Gatineau to play it.
That
by the sounds of it.
Wild.
Is that public news or are we breaking
wild?
that?
This is public news. JF Plant broke it.
Holy cow!
French
I didn't even
media.
see that. That is crazy.
That's wild.
So it's a disadvantage for sure.
That's a massive disadvantage for sure.
Keep in mind though, Ottawa will have played in that rink twice by that point in the season because they do cross over against Gatineau in February and they already played in the preseason. Plus, there's rinks there that they can practice at should they choose to do so, as Kenny Wall said yesterday.
Are you going to be there in Gatineau, Frankie?
Oh, absolutely. I don't. You guys have never been to that rink, but it is absolutely gorgeous. It's TD Place. It's brand new. TD Place is kind of old and decrepit, truthfully. So, it gives us a chance to go to a brand new rink and kind of pretend we have a brand new rink for a few weeks.
Damn, that's amazing. Good. Well. I mean, amazing given the circumstances.
It's the best. It's making the best of a difficult situation, is what I'll say.
Alrighty, guys. So moving forward here, I figured we'd almost make this like a sandwich. We'll talk about a team on the up, and now we're going to talk about a team on the down, and that's the Mississauga Steelheads. We're going to talk about their major trades. Let's start off with Owen Beck. So Peterborough acquires Owen Beck from the Steelheads in exchange for Jack Van Bolsen, Justin DeZote, 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth. What do you guys think about this initially? How should Peterborough be structuring their lineup? They got Brendan Hoffman too just recently. Really a lot of star power on that team, but at the moment it hasn't necessarily worked out initially for them.
Well, I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is Mississauga got a great haul for Owen Beck, and I know we talked about like in our chat and just like the way we talk about the league like on a day-to-day basis. I mean, we threw the concept of Mississauga like blowing it all up, but I don't know if I actually believed that it was actually going to happen just because they still had some pretty big names. Spoiler alert, it actually happened and they blew it all up and here we are. So they got a nice haul for Owen Beck. Obviously, when you're trading a player of his caliber, like you should be getting a haul like that back. And I'm just glad that the value was kind of matched in that regard. They got a great prospect in Jack Van Bolsen. They got a ton of draft picks back. And on Peterborough's side, I mean, I thought that move was going to kind of push them over the edge. They have like a top six of just like elite NHL prospects, just waiting aside from Avery Hayes, I guess, but he's still really good. I don't know, like they've kind of been. I've taken a look at their socials and like seeing how they structure their lines now. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be. I just don't think the results have been there for anybody. Like they're not they're not playing as well as they probably would say they are, and I don't know if that has to do with all the new acquisitions, but I mean, if that's any cause for concern, like that is a little concerning, at least on my end. But I'm actually glad that Mississauga like not only that, but like Mississauga also brought back like actual players that could make a difference in a couple years, and honestly, like full respect to James Richmond for at least getting that done, and like still having players he can plug into the lineup every now and then or every day.
Yeah, I think they went a little bit different than what I thought they were going to do. Like I thought they would keep a player like Owen Beck and maybe move somebody like a James Hardy. They've kind of done the reverse. But
I mean, I guess it would be hard just because like the OA situation is kind of tough. Like we've seen it.
That had to be the situation.
Like, that ties your hands already. Like, and honestly, feel so bad for James Hardy. I'm sorry. Like, imagine
new
just being,
co-captain James
like
Hardy.
the new co-captain. Yeah, that's great. He's set like franchise records and goals and points, but like he's on a team that's like not competing. And as a last year in the OU, that's not a situation you want to be in. So.
And that was a good team last year, but I didn't feel like they ever had a true chance to actually go for it. So
yeah,
he went his entire 5-year OHL career with never having a chance to go for it, which is very difficult, especially because he's been dealt the world's crappiest hand when it comes to NHL draft time too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still another trade we got to talk about, which was interesting, because Frank Saravelli tweets out beforehand, "Oh, I think Ethan Del Mastro is going to garner a bigger trade package than Shane Wright." So I'll ask you guys if you think that was necessarily the case. But Sarnia acquires Ethan Del Mastro and Luca Del Balbaluz in exchange for Porter Malone, Angus McDonald, who's now the first-line center for the Steelheads, a Flint second-rounder, a London fourth, and a fourth in 2026. What do you guys think there about that package for both sides?
Well, I don't think Ethan Del Mastro got a bigger return than Shane Wright did. Like, I'm sorry, he just didn't. And no discredit to Frank Saravelli. Like, his point made sense. It just didn't end up happening, which happens all the time. I just want to say that I called Angus McDonald going back the other way, which was obviously great. I talked to actually Chris Grizzolia, who is a friend of the show, friend of the show. We had him on earlier, and he said, he's really happy for Angus because not only is Angus a Toronto kid, like Sarnia is a far distance from Toronto. Like I'm just gonna point that out. If if you're not from Ontario, you don't know how far that commute is. Like that is far. So him coming back to what is, I guess, his hometown. He's from Toronto, like the High Park area, I think. Mississauga is not far. So his parents can see him now. Like he's back home. Like that's obviously, a big plus for him. And then Porter Martone is obviously another very similar to Jack Van Volsen in the sense that he's a high-end prospect. He was actually doing pretty well with Sarnia this year, even like as a young player. So like that says a lot about his game and what he brings to the table. So I think the value also here matched up pretty well. Like obviously Del Mastro is not coming back. I don't think at least coming back next year. Del Balbaluz might, but at least for a team that's going all in like Sarnia, like obviously they had to give up the names and they did. And this is one of those classic trades where you have a team on the up and up like Sarnia, and then you have a team rebuilding like Mississauga. So I really didn't have any problem with it. Obviously, big names out the window for Mississauga, but it made a lot of sense in terms of which direction like these franchises were going in.
And we know, like, Sarnia is not afraid to add. They had already added Erie's Christian Kairu, too, earlier on in the year. So this is definitely a depth decor. They add some forward depth in Del Balbaluz, who I think is probably
slots in on the
second
line. Like that's a great like ad for a postseason run, and the kid can score. Like Del Balbaluz can definitely fill the net. Del Mastro is like one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league. So it, again, made a lot of sense.
I do want to just point out though, in the Sarnia front, this is like their once every 10 years run that you get with these. I don't want to call them smaller teams because I feel it's a little
Sarnia's not even really like a small team though. Like I know what you're trying to say because like obviously there are like huge franchises in the league and then there are like middle markets and then there are small ones. I think Sarnia is like an equivalent to Barrie in the sense that the fan base is there. Like they have like a good front office behind them and all that stuff. And I guess you could say like it is their once in 10 years run or whatever, but I love it. Like that's what
in this case, it literally is their once in a 10-year run because like the last time they loaded up at the deadline was Travis Konechny. I always love seeing the smaller teams kind of load up and go for it because it's just not something they get to do very frequently. So I'm all on board with Sarnia going for it here, and I don't know. Like I hope it works out for them. Truthfully.
That's wild. That we could see like a Sarnia Windsor like Western Conference final matchup. That'd be insane.
And another aspect we got to talk about now are the Barrie Colts and what they happen to do as the trade deadline approach. Brandon Hache and Tyler Zavara. Take it away, Josh. What do you think of those moves? Tee us up.
Well, we talked about it a lot off the record and behind the scenes, I just think that with the Shane Wright situation, Barry was definitely a candidate. I talked to some people in our organization, and there was a belief there for that we were actually strong candidates for him, and obviously we were pushing hard. I don't doubt that for a second. I'm just gonna go on a limb and just say like it just wouldn't work out just because of the logistics and all the parties moving behind the scenes and stuff like that. So that's fine. Personally, I am like a little disappointed that we didn't do more. Just because like at face value, we didn't add like a ton of impactful players. Like we didn't really go like do the whole thing with Sarnia or the whole thing with like Kitchener, I guess, or Windsor. Like we didn't actually like go out and get like a massive name that everyone was like, oh my God, like they're loading up. However, I have been more than impressed with the way the additions have played. Like now, like looking back as like in the last like 3 games since the deadline or something, because the Colts are riding like one of the hottest streaks I think I've ever seen in my time with the organization, and just like I've never seen the team gel this well even after the deadline. So you get Braden Hache, again, one of the best shutdown defenders in the league, really under the radar move because everyone thought it was like a compensation thing for not getting Shane Wright. He has played phenomenal. He's been on the top pair. He's played great. He can hit. He can, kill penalties. He's been one of our better players, I'd say, since the deadline. And he's fit amazingly into the system here. And it also helps that he's from Newmarket, which is like a stone's throw away from Barrie. So he obviously came home from Kingston, which is always a bonus. I think we all know it's always a bonus for junior hockey players, especially. And then you add someone like Tyler Savard, who point per game with the Sioux hasn't really found his offensive touch here in Barrie just yet, but he's fit into this role that we've desperately needed. He brings a lot of physicality. He brings a lot of that, that grinder type enforcer, players that we don't normally see in junior hockey, not afraid to put his body on the line, and he gets a lot of attention from the other team, which is obviously a big plus for us. The only players, I should say, that really did that before he came was Declan McDonald and, Connor Punnett, 2 players that have found a bit of a different identity this season. And then, Ethan Quick, Frankie's boy. Honestly, I don't really like that. Was more of like a depth move for us. But even he has felt like he I think has fit in nicely on the 4th line. And he's not going to play every day. I think we all know that. But that's a depth move right there. And right now, like I think the thinking behind the whole trade deadline plan for Barrie was that they were riding a hot streak before the deadline. They were one of the hottest teams in the league before the deadline. They have kept that mentality, kept the exact same level of momentum even after the deadline has ended. And I think that was part of the thinking. I mean, there are teams that go all in and then do really well. There are teams that go all in and then do really poorly after the deadline. I think the thinking here was that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it is working perfectly right now. We've lost once in regulation in the last 16 games, and that speaks so much to how well the team has gelled. And obviously, our biggest addition wasn't even to trade. Getting Brant Clark back was an entirely different. It is an entirely different discussion, and he's been nothing short of phenomenal. I think 8 points in 3 games since he's come back, and it's been unbelievable to watch the way he's just integrated seamlessly back into the locker room.
Well, that's obviously, I think not enough people were talking about the fact that they just get Brant Clark back onto the roster. That's
and
huge.
another thing that's massive. And the other thing to consider here is that I talked to Brant Clark like the day he came back in his first game, which was a couple weeks ago against Flint. He has shown absolutely no signs of negativity. His attitude has been incredible. He looks incredibly happy to be back. And when you're a player that's on the cusp of making the NHL and then you get sent back to junior, obviously we all know it can't be the easiest transition at all, like always, because obviously the NHL is the place you want to be. But he has been unbelievably happy to be back in Barrie, and just you can see it on his face. He's always smiling around the rink, like he's making time for the fans after the game, all the kids that come up to him and ask questions and ask for his autograph. Like he has been a model player coming back from. His attitude has been incredible. And I just wanted to put that out there because I think a lot of people think that players like can get discouraged sometimes when they get sent back to junior, but he just looks like he's having fun out there. And that's really the most important thing. And I think the team has really rallied around that. And again, the standings speak for themselves. Like we were like 4th, 5th, and 6th not too long ago. And then a month and a half later, we're sitting 3rd and decently comfortable. So I'm just saying magic is a powerful thing.
Yes,
I think
for
this is
sure.
an interesting one too, because like everybody's saying, Shane Wright would have been big for Barry, but also at the same time, like you got to look at like Barry has so many draft picks right now that they can go for it again next year if they want to. So it's almost like I won't say free year because Brant Clark will be gone at the end of this year, one way or another. So like it gives them a good chance to take some young players into the playoffs and build that experience for next year without breaking the bank this year. And like I think next year they could take a legitimate super run at this.
Yeah, they could also be one of those teams that I think, like, looking past the first round, because hopefully they finish in a higher seed position, get home ice, and then beat their first round opponent. They're probably going to be the lowest seeded team. If we're talking realistically, they're probably going to be the lowest seeded team heading into the second round. That way, they might be one of those teams that can catch lightning in a bottle and do something special and go on a run. But at face value, like, I don't want fans to get discouraged because they didn't make the flashiest moves at the deadline. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and they're rolling right now.
And we'll see what happens with Peterborough too, because again, they made all those trades and it hasn't worked so far. We'll see. Like I think we're all expecting that eventually they're going to figure it out and get rolling again. But we'll have to wait and see. That there's nothing certain about adding X player and plugging him in immediately and having success.
That's a great point. Like, just because you make the trade for the flashiest name on the market does not mean it's going to work well for your organization. It looks good on paper and on social media, obviously, and fans love it. But once you look at the results and the results aren't there, then you start to panic a little bit.
Alrighty, guys. The last team we have to talk about, because they basically treated the whole year like it was the trade deadline. If you were a Niagara Ice dog, you did not know if you were going to get traded at some point. Let's talk about the direction that team is going in and whether you believe in it. Like they had obviously Mississauga acquired Zach Lavoie. They got Nolan Dan at the trade deadline. They've been trading draft picks, acquiring them. What direction is this team heading in?
Can I start here?
Yes.
Yeah. Frankie has the floor.
So again, Ottawa is what I know, right? And in talking to General Manager James Boyd, he said, kind of the draft picks are where you build your team. You build your team by drafting well, having those players come up. And in Ottawa, in particular, the last player before Logan Morrison they had traded for was actually Steve Lafleur, way back during the pandemic. So I think he was playing junior B at the time. So I'm kind of in the boat that is like that. I believe that the best way to build a junior hockey team is through the draft and then supplementing that with trades if you need to. So Niagara, like, they don't have a single player on this roster anymore that they drafted. And I think I've never seen something like that before, first of all. And I don't know, like, I just, you look at where they are in their standings and it's like, what is going on? Like, what's the plan? Because every time it looks like there's a plan in place, it's ripped up and redone. So
this is a team bidding for the Memorial Cup, by the way.
Yeah. Thankfully, the trade deadline's passed and they can't make any more trades. But it almost looks like with trading guys like Panofemis is a prime example. It looks like they're trying to make up for the mistakes that they made at the start of the year.
But Panofemis wasn't even a mistake, though. Like, I know he probably could have benefited from a change in environment, but even I think that might have been a little too soon to give up on a player of his caliber.
No, for sure. I think that they went, oh, crap, we have no draft picks left. We've got to recoup some assets now that we know this is going nowhere.
It was it was so weird. Like, I'm in the same boat as Frankie. Like, I didn't even dare to say that 1 week it looks like they're trying to contend, and in 1 week it looks like they're completely rebuilding. I mean, you just look at the meaningful moves they made over the offseason. They don't even have any of those players anymore. You give up a bunch of draft picks and capital for a guy like Pascal Zito, and then you trade him back to a contender in the middle of the year? What for? Like, why would you do that over the summer if you were only going to trade him later on? Same thing with Matthew Pappas. Like, OA, guy who's like obviously not like the flashiest name in the OHL, but can still put up decent production. And then you just trade him off in the middle of the season right after acquiring him this summer. And then Panofemis, like, I just feel bad for the kid because he was in Niagara during all the scandal stuff, and now he's with a new GM, and then he gets flipped to a team, let's face it, that's honestly not even that good either. And he goes to Erie. Like, it boggles the mind why some of these trades are even worth making. And then you see all the players that are coming into Niagara, and all you can do is just really feel bad for those guys at that point, because like, they don't know what they're doing there. Like, geez.
Like, do they have a lot of picks or do they not? Like, I genuinely have no idea.
I've lost track. I actually don't know. Like they got picks back from like the Pascal Zito trade.
Well, calculate it. I'm going to calculate every trade and like what came in and what came out for the next show, just so we have an idea of what actually has occurred.
It is just like so weird. Like I don't even know how the front office themselves keeps track of what they still have.
Yeah. The thing with Niagara to me is they took this season and tried to compete, right? It didn't work. So they traded away their future to go even further in the future. So to me, when I'm looking at what they have now and I'm projecting when they're going to be competitive again, I'd say 4 or 5 years. Like they
made it worse.
They made a long rebuild into an exceptionally long rebuild. And I don't want to crap on them because, the players there, first of all, like it's an awful situation for them to be in. They're way out of the playoffs. They don't have a chance this year. They've got to make it through the rest of this year.
They're not only way out of the playoffs. They're way below the second last place team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, they're just
how bad it's gone.
They're just not close, right? And that's the thing I think that's most disheartening for the players is they have to play with this, knowing that this team is going nowhere this year, and looking at the future and going, okay, well, all of our young players are going to be 16-year-olds next year. It's going to be until at least 17, 18 years old where we're competitive. And a lot of these guys are going to be out of the league by then. So it's a tough situation.
About Sam Dickinson as a nice dog. That feels like forever ago now.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, for our final segment here, let's try to calculate our top 3 winners in terms of the trade done.
To be fair, we didn't talk about one of the bigger trades, though, Jordan. Before we do that, we need to talk about that Avery Hayes, Kevin White trade.
Oh yeah.
And
can you hear me?
We can hear you, but there's music playing, man.
Yeah. Baker's Canyon team.
This musical interlude is brought to you by nobody.
Okay, wait. Jordan, literally just step out into the hall like I did that one time. Like it's bad. Like it's terrible timing. Anyways, while Jordan takes a bit of a hiatus, consider it a commercial break on his end, Frankie and I will begin dissecting the Avery Hayes, Gavin White deal that sent 2 very interesting players back the other way to Hamilton. Frankie, what do you think?
Oh, my, man. Hamilton kind of made out like bandits, I think.
I think so, too. I love it.
I got to go back and I got to find this trade. Where is it here?
Yeah.
Because
just like the main pieces, though, like we're going to go like roster players because they got draft picks, too. But I think, if I recall correctly, Avery Hayes and Gavin White, 2 OAs from Hamilton, were dealt to Peterborough, who's, again, going all in case you missed it, for Nick Lardis and Sahil Panwar.
I got to throw it in there, too, because we haven't talked about the London trade yet with Ryan Humphrey and Ryan Winterton.
Right.
Carson Lloyd and Luca Testa, because Hamilton, I saw them play the other day. They look good. Like, this is a team that I am so confident in being back to, like, championship winning status in about 2 years, right?
I agree.
They made off like bandits in these trades. Nick Lardis is a massive piece. Luca Testa is a massive piece. I think they have some good young players on their team already.
Yep.
And Sahil Panwar is just a really good veteran to help them to lead through this transitional period. Like, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the teams who won the deadline. My pick for winning the deadline straight up is the Hamilton Bulldogs.
Man, I am on the same page, Frankie.
Yeah.
Like, I was going to say, like, I can't even add to anything you just said because I think the exact same way. The only thing I will add, though, is that if you look at the way Hamilton has played out of the deadline, first of all, they've been one of the better teams, I'd argue. Number 2, Sahil Panwar and Nick Lardis are literally scoring at will at this point.
Yeah.
And they are like young, like, okay, not Sahil Panwar, but Nick Lardis is one of those young prospects equivalent to like a Porter Martone or an Angus McDonald like type. But wow, talk about making an instant impact with your new team, because Nick Lardis has done exactly that. And that has made at least the ship off of those OAs even better for Hamilton. I am really excited to see where that team goes in the future.
Hamilton has worked their way up in the conversation of premier teams in this league too, because every time
their management, everything from their content to their management has been incredible. Like even back to like the Arthur Kaliev days and the Robert Thomas days, like they were great, and they have really embraced that junior hockey like attitude and just run with it. Aside from the whole arena stuff, but again, we'll look past that for now.
But they know how to build it up and they know how to tear it down, and they do it exceptionally well. You don't win 2 championships in the OHL this close together with poor management.
I know.
So,
and
like,
how do you stay consistently competitive all
Yeah.
throughout those years? It's literally this formula.
Yeah.
Ship off your OAs when you know you're not going to make it, get a substantial return get a substantial return back, and then do the exact same thing in a couple years. It's
I have
crazy.
a bold prediction for you guys too. Hamilton finishes 5th.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
interesting.
I
That's
think
interesting.
Hamilton is going to move up the standings. I think Kingston's going to move down the standings.
Yep.
And Niagara's going to stay in last place.
So before we talk about our winners and losers at the deadline, and Jordan has returned now, we got to talk about that one last substantial trade. Little early, but again, involved Hamilton shipping off a couple veteran players for prospects, and Ryan Winterton and Ryan Humphrey going to London. Luca Testa and Carson Lloyd going back the other way with some draft picks thrown in there, obviously. Honestly, like Frankie kind of touched on it there, so I don't know if we need to go like too in depth in this. I think London overpaid a little bit for like these players going back, but again, this is all about Hamilton just getting assets back, building up for the years to come, and they're doing a hell of a job of it too. Like respect, but
they got everything they could have wanted to, because like if you look at these two trades, they didn't get many picks, but they did get those picks from Ottawa,
right,
or Logan Morrison. So they got everything. They swindled everybody. Realistically, like,
and remember, Luca Testa was like one of those names that was thrown into the Shane Wright conversation. Like this is not like some like low end prospect that's just like an add on to this. Like obviously on a rebuilding team, you're looking at those types of players that are obviously way younger and can make an impact later on. But I mean, Hamilton did their homework and they came out of it like just like I like an immaculate management of assets. Like honestly, if you're not going to get draft picks from one trade, you're going to get them back in another, and they did exactly that. And, you know, full respect to them. I hate them as a team because they always give Barry a hard time, but like full respect. That's great.
I should rephrase, that they didn't swindle any one team. I just think they were so galaxy brain that they made all their trades connect together.
They knew exactly what they wanted too. They got the most out of all of those players, and you do not see that very often from a front office perspective. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting team in a couple of years for sure.
Alrighty, everybody. So we are back to finish up the show by picking our 2 trade deadline winners. Now, we all just extensively discussed Hamilton. I think we can safely put Hamilton on all of our top 2 lists at this point. Is that fair to say, guys?
Yeah,
for sure.
But now who we put in that next category, it varies, I imagine, a bit. So let's start with you, Frankie. Who do you say goes either before Hamilton or just slightly after Hamilton? What are you ordering?
Well, I'm putting Hamilton first. Just like I don't like to always put selling teams first, but I think they sold so well this year that you have to put them there. You guys are going to call me biased for this, but I definitely have to have Ottawa on my list, because for them to get 2 of the top 3 leading scorers in the league without giving up any young players, I think 15 draft picks is a lot, yes. But when you don't give up a Henry Muse or a Frankie Morelli or one of those guys to get that, I think you have to consider that a win.
How about you, Josh?
I hate to say this, but I am going to put Ottawa next to Hamilton on the winners because, like, look, they didn't have much to do because they're still they're one of the best team, arguably the best team in CHL. And they still manage to get better. And when they do that, when a team like that does something like that, it's really hard not to say that they're a winner. My honorable mention is a tie between Windsor and Barrie, because honestly, I think obviously Windsor you have to throw in there because Shane Wright makes them an instant like Memorial Cup contender for sure. And that team was not even that bad before Shane Wright got there. And he's picked up, right where he left off. The reason I say Barrie, not out of bias, it's just because I'm trying to get over this personal thing, because I also get kind of disappointed that they didn't do much at the deadline. But after watching them play since the deadline, I have to reassure fans out there that they're actually really good too. Like they're just because they didn't do much at the deadline does not mean they've like taken a step back or anything like that. So the ads that they made a lot of sense from an organizational perspective, and obviously getting Brant Clark back like right after the trade deadline is huge. So my reasoning, that's why I put Barrie as one of the winners on that list.
I hate to ramble too, but I totally connect with that one, because if you remember back to the pandemic season, Ottawa added Dalen Grew at the deadline, and that was it, right? And I think people in Ottawa were a little bit upset that Akil Thomas didn't come here. But again, at that point, that's not what they needed. So sometimes the best move is the one you don't make. Sometimes that backfires. Sometimes adding the big name backfires. So, like we said earlier, we'll see what Peterborough is capable of doing. We'll see what North Bay, who was also a little bit quiet at the deadline, having already made a bunch of moves early in the season.
Yeah.
We'll see what those teams are able to do.
Honestly, I'm just still glad Bo Akey's a member of the Colts. That's it.
Bo Akey fan club president over here.
Yeah, huge Bo Akey fan. The stock is just rising on that guy.
And for me, I actually have Ottawa as my honorable mention. Obviously, I mean, look, that Pavel Mintyukov trade could end up being the biggest trade out of any trade that was made at the deadline. Well, obviously, see what happens come playoff time. But overall, I really respect what the Windsor Spitfires did. They spent 18 draft picks total. Not only they get Shane Wright, but they got Brett Harris from Oshawa. They got Jacob Holmes from Sudbury. They're going all in here. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. I really like what Mark Savard's doing. You wouldn't even think he's a first-year OHL coach, but he's come in and instantly fit. And I think this is a team that's really destined for greatness here.
By the way, Tyler Savard, Mark Savard's son, just wanted to point.
I didn't know. If
anyone did not know that,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, which I think is a fun little connection. So we can just say that both Savards won the trade deadline.
You know who we didn't talk about?
Have you taken a photo of them, Josh, or do you think they'll take a photo of them together?
I'm not there on Saturday, so I can't. It's unfortunate, I know.
Go ahead, Frankie.
Yeah, you know who we didn't talk about at all, which is crazy, is the Kitchener
Rangers.
Yeah,
I knew it.
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah. What do you want to?
You know what?
Let's add a quick note on that.
Do you want to talk about that now? I feel like we could do a whole other episode on that.
We probably could, because how, with this many good players, are they in ninth place? It doesn't make any sense.
See, that is my fear with like a team like Peterborough, like having that many star players and just not making it work. I know people in the Rangers organization. Shout out one of the best photographers in the game, Tiffany Luke, Rangers photog, just a legend. Yeah, it is not a pretty scene over there right now. They get Danny Jacklin, Francesco Arcuri, all the big name guys. And then they lose 8 of their last 9 games, and they lose to Guelph. And I'm like, what is happening over there? Fans are not happy on social media. I like browsing other teams' social media just to see the response they're getting.
And yet they packed that place, which is so cool.
I know, which is crazy. But
it's so cool.
Man, it's not good. Like, they're out of a playoff spot right now. They're 3 points back. I don't even know. There's 31 games left, it sounds like a lot. I don't even know how much further they can climb up the standings, if I'm being totally honest.
I do have one more interesting thing for us to talk about, because we are now into the point where we start making playoff predictions. So I'm curious to see who you guys think are the 2 missers from each conference.
The 2 missers?
You want to do that right now?
2 missers.
Oh,
yeah, man. Why not?
Okay, wait. Full disclosure, before I say this, my answer will likely change when we dive into like a playoff preview episode like later on in the season.
Well, so this is off the cuff.
Like off the top of your head. Okay.
Off the top of your head, who do you think is missing the playoffs?
Niagara's not making it in the East. We know that.
The East is so
really
You're just saying Niagara is also not making it in the West.
Niagara might be the safest pick you could make.
Niagara's definitely the safest pick.
Yeah. Erie's not making it in the West for me.
Yeah, I've got those same 2.
Okay. This is where it gets hard because the 8th place team and the 9th place team is tough. So in the East, I'd argue it's down to 2. It's down to 2 teams. It's down to Sudbury and it's down to Oshawa. I think Oshawa misses the playoffs off the top.
Yeah, I think so too. I think
Sudbury's
a bit better.
Sudbury's going to squeak it out somehow, just because I think their talent is better. Solely because of talent. I think their talent's better.
I'm going to say
be a shame.
Yeah, Oshawa. I mean, having sold some of the guys they sold, I just don't see the path. Even though they have won 3 straight games, they've won. I mean, they've won 4 of 10 in their last 10. But again, 3 straight wins. I think Sudbury's better, as you guys said.
Yep.
Sudbury is the 5th best goal differential in the East. That they just can't get a save. They score a lot of goals, but they basically
they could not get a save in the first half.
They sit in the penalty box a lot too. That's kind of one of their trademarks that they've never really been able to shake.
Just actually like a funny note to this, just because we're wrapping up the Eastern Conference playoff prediction, who's gonna make it or not. Sudbury's currently a 1 point up on Oshawa, and they've played the exact same amount of games. So if they keep that pace, they're gonna make it.
And Sudbury's 6-2, 0-2 in their last 10, so they're on a bit of a heater.
Interesting stat. The other side is a little more interesting. First of all, I did not realize Guelph was better than the Sioux, just based on how badly Guelph started the season. So for them to be sitting in 7th right now, actually not bad, all things considered.
Yeah.
But I think it just boils down to Flint's definitely making it. So I think the cutoff, it goes down to those 4 teams. I hate to say it, gentlemen. I think Kitchener squeaks in as the 8th seed.
I do as well.
Yeah,
I think the Sioux drop out, and I think it's like Guelph, Kitchener 7-8, and then that's it.
I'm kind of curious to see what happens at the top there too, because with Saginaw moving on from
Oh man,
Minchikov,
we really just gonna dive into the whole playoff?
well, there's just one of the ones I'm watching because again, as I said at the start of the year, there's going to be a weird team that sells and a weird team that buys. I don't know if we really had the weird team that buys.
The weird team that buys is Kitchener.
Actually, you know what? Fair enough. Yeah. So I was.
They were out of a playoffs. They were 7th not too long ago, and they're like, yes, this is the year that it all happens for.
Yes, I would like Francesco Arcuri, please. Here's my entire future.
I would like Danny Jokin. Just give me everybody, and we're gonna be worse than you in the standings.
What if those players that they got, because they have so much talent, just suddenly put it together in the playoffs?
That's why I'm so afraid of them. I would not want to play them in the first round.
Oh my god!
If I'm Windsor, I'm wincing thinking about
even
playing
like
them.
3. If 3 of those like top 6 players actually hit their stride, they're making it out of the first round of the playoffs because they're so good.
Yeah.
So
would you rather play the Sioux Greyhounds or the Kitchener Rangers right now? It's obvious.
Any day of the week. Yeah, you're right. Because like you don't know what could happen, and that happened last year. Like that is the exact like thing that went down last year. But I mean, yeah, I agree. I think the Sioux fall out. I think Erie and the Sioux like finish, in the bottom, and whatever else happens.
I could see Kitchener
do you want to talk
climbing all the way up to 6 if they figure it out.
If they figure it out. All the way up to 6th, eh? Wow.
Well, look at the games in hand they have on people right now too. That's
fair. They have at least 3 on like
they do. Yeah, 3 to 4.
I mean, that's a lot.
Hand,
6 points. And, yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about who's finishing at the top for us?
At the top of each division?
Well, I mean, aside from Ottawa, like the conference.
I mean, it's not guaranteed Ottawa finishes first, but I mean, it is pretty likely.
But actually, you know what? Each
I didn't even realize how close North Bay was to Ottawa. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it's very close.
North Bay's only 3 points back of Ottawa for first in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. That is crazy.
Yeah,
and Barrie's only 10 back. You never know what could happen, guys. Like we could go on a run. You never know. But yeah, that's.
But man, Ottawa's just so good defensively. They're the only team to not allow it like be in the triple digits for goals against.
We'll
confirm
believe
that on Thursday.
I believe Ottawa is they're second in the league in goals for and best in the league for goals against. So like they're good on both ends.
You're actually wrong. They're third behind Windsor and North Bay.
In goals for?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, that's in the Eastern Conference. My bad.
Oh yes.
So who finishes at the top of?
I still think it's Ottawa for the East, and for the West, I'm gonna say it's gonna be the Windsor Spitfires. Still.
Yeah, I got to go.
It could be London though. London's right there, but
London is right there. Saginaw kind of fell off, but London is right there. Yeah, I agree.
I think the next few weeks are going to be big for Ottawa. Big road trip this weekend. Barrie, Kitchener, Owen Sound. So a very tough weekend.
Well, you say it's going to be big for Ottawa, but it is equally big for Kitchener. They play
for sure.
Ottawa, Barrie,
Absolutely.
London. Like they're going to play London twice in like a week. I'm not going to say that's going to make or break your season, but that's like a measuring stick week of all measuring stick weeks. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, it's not a make or break part of the season at all. But if you come out of that, with 1 win or 0 wins, the North Bay is right ahead of you. So it is a massive weekend for Ottawa.
How excited are you for the Thursday matchup, Frankie? I'll be there. I'm being there tomorrow.
You know what? It's kind of wait and see. Like I think.
Can you tell Caden Kelly to say hi to me?
It's very. You know what? I will tell. You know what? Actually, no. I don't like you anymore. So.
Yeah, that's a nice. That's gonna be a fun game. Like Minchikov versus Clark is just like it doesn't get any better than that on at least on the Eastern Conference side. So, Sadlon Arena, better pack the house because it's gonna be a good one.
We'll see where Ottawa's at in terms of health, but that's not an excuse. As Dave Cameron and Norm Millie say all the time. So. Whatever's there.
And after I missed like the first time these two teams played in Barrie, like I am so excited for tomorrow. Like, just give me Thursday already.
And the vibes are still decent in Mississauga despite all the sell-offs. I mean, all the new guys have fit in pretty well. There's a genuine good air. Charlie Callahan, James Hardy being co-captains. They're still going to make the playoffs probably. So. They're still going to make the playoffs for sure, but whether they get decimated in the first round is another question.
Because
That we will
if they
find
make the
out.
playoffs, they might we might see a rematch, Barry versus Mississauga again.
No, Hamilton's finishing ahead of Mississauga.
Yeah,
sure.
3-6,
Yes.
3-6. That could work. Like if Barry Holt hangs on and Peterborough, imagine Peterborough as the 4 seed entering the playoffs. That's crazy.
Possible. Very
But
possible.
overall, boys, we're back on a regular schedule now, and make sure you're watching us because we're going to be covering this whole race here at the end of the regular season. It's going to be a lot of storylines, and we're just excited to cover one of the best junior leagues in hockey. Anything
Also,
else you guys
if you
want to
have
say?
not yet, by the time this episode is out, our interview with Cole Beaudoin is going to be out as well. So be sure to check that out. He said he had some great stories. Like him and Frankie bonded by the fact that they were both from the Ottawa area. So
Canada boys.
he's had some great stories. Great person to talk to. Overall, like again, reminder, like the 10th overall pick from this past year's draft. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Because if you're listening to this now, the episode's already out. So go listen to it.
Anything you want to say, Frankie?
Not at all.
And
Yeah.
that's it.
He's nervous for Thursday. Barry's on a roll. Ottawa's yeah.
Hey
For
man,
their
I
standards.
don't have to be there, so I can be a little bit less compressed.
Are you gonna watch it?
Oh, I'll be watching it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I watch all the games.
keep an eye out for me between the benches.
I won't.
And overall, for Frankie and Josh, this is Jordan. This has been the O Talk Podcast. Thanks for watching. Have a nice week.